Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And this morning I have a very special guest on. So if you would do me a favor, share this out right now, share it out with all of your friends across all your social media platforms, and we will see you in just a minute. And we are back. And you know what? I didn't even ask this nice young lady how to pronounce her last name. So I'm going to go with Alexa, and she can tell us how to pronounce her name. Here we go. Let me bring Alexa on. Good morning,
Good
Alexa.
morning. Good morning. I would actually love to see you try and see how you do.
I'm going to go with D'Agostino.
Very close. Very D'Agostino.
D'Agostino.
You were so close. I'm
Darn it.
very impressed though, I have to say. Very impressed.
Oh, well, hey, I've done this a few times, but I've never said that last name. It's very unique. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is
Well, thank
that
you for
what
having me.
is that a ClickFunnels award behind you?
It is. It is one of 8
Yeah.
of our awards. So we have 8 of them. And so
Well
this is just
done.
one because I think it's a little obnoxious to hang 8. So I just hung one. So, but I'm waiting for that 3 comma. So we're getting there. We're almost there.
That's
So
awesome. I'm friends with Robbie Summers. He's a great guy, the VP of
yeah.
VP of sales.
Yep.
So Alexa, I had to mute my device on my desk because it would have been going off throughout this entire interview.
We actually have a rule when you're hired. So we have a whole onboarding and there's a whole video on how to change the name of your Amazon to Echo.
Yeah.
So we actually have an entire part of our onboarding. Like if you're going to work for me, you've got to change the name. It cannot be Alexa.
That is so funny. So we were introduced by our mutual buddy Joe Ingram. And so thank you, Joe, for oh look, there he is. Love me some
There
Alexa.
is Mr.
So
Joe.
so I started this show about 4 years ago. I've interviewed around 450 celebrities and entrepreneurs, and um, I've heard some amazing stories, and I can't wait to hear yours. I know it's rather impressive. So why don't we start with where you were born and raised?
Yeah. So I was born in New York, and raised in New York. I've actually never lived anywhere else. We bought property in Charleston about 10 years ago. So probably not until 5 years ago, we really started to pretty much split time. But for the most part, I'm born and raised in New York. I've spent a majority of my life in New York, and we're now moving to Florida. So it's going to be a whole new experience, and a lot of tax savings. So
Yeah. Florida's there's a lot of people in New York moving to Florida.
New York is just getting too expensive.
Yeah.
It is so expensive right now. So
That's awesome. Look, everybody's like funny, Alexa. I love this because I a lot of times during a live stream I'll say something to her, ask her something to repeat to everybody when I'm live streaming, and everybody's goes off that's listening. They're like, "You just set off my Alexa."
that's
So
funny.
so you are you were born and raised in New York, like I'm assuming upstate somewhere, or
Right outside the city. So
oh,
Westchester County.
oh wow.
Yeah. So
Okay.
right outside the city.
So you're almost a city girl then. So
Yeah. I live
what
in the
was it?
most expensive county in the nation
Is it
right
really?
now. Yeah. It's top 10. And it goes between 1 and 3. But last year it was top 1. And then I think we might be 2 or 3 this year. But yeah, it's insane here. I mean, you can't get like a 3-bedroom house for under 1 million here. It's yeah, condos, a 2-bedroom condo is going for about 500. I mean, we have a townhouse. We just literally sold it for over 1 million. Like it's crazy. The real estate here is just you can't live. It's crazy.
Wow.
We
What
were
are
going to
the
buy a
gas?
house. Just to put in perspective, the house we bought in Florida would
Yeah.
be about $4 million here, and the real estate tax would be 80 to 120,000 a year
Oh my
in
gosh.
tax. That's the equivalent.
Oh my,
It's crazy.
that's insane. That seems communistic.
Yeah.
We probably
It
shouldn't go
it
there.
is too bad because it's a beautiful area. It's
I'm
it's so
sure.
nice, it's so diverse, and, like,
Yeah.
there's just so many I'm Hispanic, so my family's from Cuba, so I love the fact that my daughter right now is able to grow up around everybody. I mean, we have everything here. It's so diverse, it's beautiful, but it's too expensive.
That's crazy. That's too bad. Like my wife's on here. She said that's too bad. It's very sad that and I don't think they think too far ahead because people will just eventually leave and go, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm done with you. And
I'm
I'm
actually
not coming
worried.
back.
I'm
What's
worried
that?
about New York. I'm worried
Yeah.
about New York, I really am. Yeah.
There's a mass exodus occurring there. I think
Yeah.
it's crazy. So what was it like for you though, growing up and going to school? I'm assuming, well, I know you graduated because you have a PhD. So what was it like for you though, growing up there as a kid?
Yeah. So everyone in my family was an entrepreneur because when they came to America, they couldn't speak English. So they had no choice but to hustle.
Yeah.
And I mean, we had a painting business, a moving business. I mean, you name the business and my family started it. And so growing up, it was very entrepreneurial and I saw everything. I saw my parents, succeed in businesses, go bankrupt in businesses, make mistakes, do really well, start and create awesome new businesses. Like, so you name it. And I saw it. And the difference, and I always say I was that 8-year-old that was like trying to make money, figuring out how to sell ice cream. And I'd buy like a $2 tub of ice cream and then sell scoops for $2 and make, $14 out of it and a $12 profit. Like then I would like add $1 for sprinkles. I was that kid.
I
And
love that.
I was always getting in trouble. When I was 12, I started a book business. And what I would do is I'd go to the book fairs and I'd go, "Ma, can I have $20? I'm going to the book fair." And my mom would be like, "Oh my God, she wants to buy books at the book fair." And then I go to my dad, "Dad, can I have $20? I'm going to the book fair." And he's like, "Oh," like, and I would never, didn't know they both were giving me 20. So I'd have $40. I'd go to the book fair and I'd buy out all the popular books. They were like 50 cents, $1 at the time.
Yeah.
I'd buy them all out and wipe them out and then resell them like a week or two later at lunchtime to the kids for like twice, 2, 3x.
Wow.
So I got in a lot of trouble, but
That's awesome.
so I was always an entrepreneurial kid, and our dinner table conversations was, my dad was actually at one point he was the VP of manufacturing for all of IBM, so he actually managed all of the manufacturing plants worldwide. He
Wow.
was the project manager on the first microchip, which we actually have. We actually have it in a plaque, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Probably worth a lot of money. And so we would come home and my dad, at one point he had thousands of employees. And so he would come home and he would say, "Alexa, all right, we're going through layoffs. I have to lay off 150 people, but I have 2,000 employees. How do I determine? Let's sit down." And I'd be like 15 years old, and he'd be coming home with these massive problems, right? So even the microchips, when they created like the second or third version, he was like, "All right, we have to now shrink this down," and we would talk about the tech of it. And so these were like our dining room dinner
Wow.
conversations. So it was not a normal childhood whatsoever. So yeah, it was fun. But that's how I got started and why I started my first business at 18. I didn't know anything better.
That you just gave me like I now know why you're so successful at everything that you've done. I mean, that's it, right? You were programmed to be like
I also
inadvertently,
saw
maybe.
hard work, and it's
Yeah.
like, I go through this, and if for parents that are listening, so I would love to see in the comments, like, who's parents, because you'll resonate with this. I go back and forth. I have a 2-year-old, and I, struggle sometimes with how much I work. And then I go back and forth. I'm like, well, she's seeing me hustle. She's seeing me work hard. And then the other side of me is like, she wants my nanny more than me. But then I go back to my childhood, and like, I barely saw my parents. I was in second grade coming home to an empty house, making myself macaroni and cheese.
Yeah.
And, I turned out pretty good. And so I keep reminding myself, I'm like, my child, my daughter, she's seeing me work hard. And when I'm with her, I give her my attention. And it might
Yep.
not be, full time, 8-10 hours a day, but the 2 to 3 hours I do spend with her, I make sure I'm attentive to her. But she's seeing me work hard. And that's, growing up, I saw both of my parents work their butts off.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's why I'm successful.
I mean, I'll put some comments up, but our 12-year-old daughter a few years ago, she said, I want to start a business. I'm like, okay. At 9
I
years
love
old, I
it.
said, well, what do you want to do? And she goes, well, how about I sell lemonade? And so we
I love it.
we talked through, strategy of where she should set it up, not at the end of our cul-de-sac, but out on the main road, like where all and she made $200 in 2 hours. She
Man,
got
maybe I
there.
should hire her.
I know, right? She's spinning signs, doing gymnastics and backflips, and all, and people are stopping.
I
She's
have a
giving
couple
the police.
positions, Ken. I'm ready to hire her.
I
I
know,
really love
but
I love young talent. I'm
so
not
do I.
kidding. I really do. I part of why I started coaching was because I loved mentoring young employees, and this was my fourth exit. When I was 24 years old, I had a pretty massive 8-figure business, had no idea what I was doing. I was
Wow.
a terrible leader because I had no idea, right? I didn't have a coach at the time. It wasn't really a thing back then, to be honest, or
Right.
that I knew, not as popular as it is now. And I kind of was lost. And one of the things that I found is I went to go get my PhD, and I fell in love with teaching. And fell in love with these young, like, motivated kids who wanted to be entrepreneurs. And I felt like the system in higher ed wasn't really teaching them what they really needed to learn. So I started mentoring young kids on how to be entrepreneurs. And so my wife and I, we actually fully fund 8 students a year, low income Hispanic. Most of them are females, but we have a couple males that want to be entrepreneurs. And part of it is I don't pay your tuition bill unless you meet with me every week. Like, that's the deal.
That's
And I
awesome.
mentor them. And a couple of them, I have one kid who literally has a multi 6-figure business, and he's 19. So like, it really motivates me to see these young kids like your daughter
Yeah.
start, because it's skills that are just even if they go into a 9 to 5 later, the skills you learn being your own boss and being an entrepreneur at a young age, I
Yeah.
mean, you can't really learn that in school.
You can't. And I think, who was it? Shakespeare, somebody way smarter than me, said, the greatest disservice we do to our children is to steal away their hunger. And I keep that in the back of my mind every time my daughter asks for something. I'm like, how are you going to earn it? You have to earn it. Like, you got to work for it. I'm not giving it to you. And I think that is something that parents, and I get it. I mean, I trust me, I want to give her everything, but I want her to understand that she has to work for it.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. And I look at my childhood, and that's what my parents did. I mean, I bought everything, including my first car at 17. It was an $18,000 car, and I bought it
Wow.
myself. And I bought my first laptop, my MacBook, which is actually how I got started. I was 14. I took my communion money, and I bought my first MacBook all by myself, taught myself how to do web design. And when I was younger, my parents would buy me computers. But do you want to know what my dad used to do? He would bring home broken computers and tell me to figure out how to fix them. So then I would be like ordering motherboards and all this stuff. And I learned how to piece computers together. Like that. This is how my parents taught me. He'd go,
Oh,
hey, here's a dingy computer, figure out how to fix it. And then they wouldn't actually buy me any software. They said, figure it out. So then I kind of did the opposite of what they probably thought I was going to do. And I figured out how to hack, and I figured out how to download all the software for free. I'm so glad I did not get arrested, guys. I was like 13. Give me a break. But so I ended up, that's how I started coding, because I started figuring out how to hack into things and code things. And,
Wow.
so it is these little things, these little lessons, these little tough loves that
Yeah,
really teach you and shape you. Right.
it's true. And I think the bigger, eh, 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 I don't know about you, but I know there's been this little chip on my shoulder my entire life about and that's what I just won't like. There may be smarter people, but it's going to be tough to outwork me because I just won't give up, like no matter what. And it sounds like you're like that too.
And it's kind of, and I don't know if you have the same issue, Ken. So we have a coaching business done with you, and a agency which I just started again, and a
Yeah.
done for you, which
Yeah.
I didn't promise myself I would never start another agency, but then I had just so much business sitting on my lap. I was like, all right, I might as well start it, but I'm going to do it
Yeah.
differently this time, and I did. I did it way differently than the first. But what I find is when we're hiring employees, I go so fast, and I hear things like, well, nobody runs as fast as you, Alexa.
Yeah.
Nobody's as quick as you. Nobody, like, and so that's part of, I have to, as a leader, sometimes come down, because we're almost so fast and so quick that we have to align our expectation of our team, because then they're going to burn out. So I struggle sometimes with that, and I try to manage, because sometimes I'm just like, all right, I can get this done in 30 minutes. I'll just do it myself at this point, if it's not done. And that's not always the right approach. So I think I
No.
agree with you. I think it is, nobody's going to ever out hustle me, but it's hard to find employees that have that same attitude. And it doesn't mean it doesn't mean they're not working hard. They do work hard, but they work hard in their own mind, like
Yeah.
not the expectation that we would have, if that makes sense.
It's literally, we're talking about uh, the biggest pain I have. I used to have 10 employees in my agency, and I had, but it the drama. I don't even know how else to put it. Like the drama, and I just like, if I just do it myself, it gets done. It gets done right the first time. I don't have to, And so that's one of my, and it comes down to what we're going to talk about. And I think that you're good at putting processes in place, and I know you've exited several companies and done well. But let's go back to 18. You see, we went past that kind of fast. You said you started your first business at 18, which isn't necessarily true, because it sounds like you may have started way before that. But
Official business. I'll say
right,
official business.
right, where you're not pirating software.
Exactly. It's actually a pretty funny story, how I got started. So,
Yeah, I want to hear this.
um, I was going into college, so I was going to Pace, and I love seeing me so big.
Yeah,
And
I'm still here.
and so I was like, oh, I need some extra cash. I'm in college. Like I was actually, it was actually the senior year of my high school. And I was like, okay, I want to save money for college and start saving some. And I had some other stuff happening and going on, and I was
Yeah.
doing some stuff around for my parents and stuff, but I really want to make my own money. So I literally put up an ad on Craigslist, and this was before Craigslist was really creepy. And I said, I will do your website for $300. And this lady approached me, and she was like, oh, I would love for you to do my website. I'm like, oh crap, now I got to learn how to do websites. I'm like, all right. So I'm like, I'm figuring out, like, I kind of knew how to do it. I did my own website, but I've never done somebody else's. I'm like, all right, I got to figure this out real quick. And long story short, she ended up not only loving the site, but it figures out that her husband was like the mayor of all of Westchester. So I ended up getting pulled into government work, referred to like mega big businesses. And like, it kind of was like a stroke of luck, but I also, like, I did whatever it took to make this website successful. And I've carried that through the rest of my career. Like, nothing goes out unless it's excellent. But I do it fast, and I'm also not a perfectionist. I'm a big believer, get to 80% and then fix to 20% as you go.
Yeah.
Because it's normally the last 20% that slows you down. So we have a something that we live by called marketing by modification, which is put it out, speed of implementation, execute quickly, modify as you go, and then test and then repeat. And so I ended up building this big business by accident. Actually, it was not really meant to be a big business, and I ended up through networking and referrals, building a pretty massive business. And a few of my clients, one was the CIO of Morgan Stanley, one was the CEO of one of the biggest Wi-Fi installers in the world. So they actually are Google and Amazon's #1 Wi-Fi installer. So if you go to any like public, like Bryant Park or any of the parks in Chicago or California, the Wi-Fi that is all in the public, like the massive public cities, is done by them. They're like almost $1 billion company.
Wow.
I had built the entire brand from scratch when they just started. And he brought me into some of his businesses. And what was happening is some of my smaller clients that were becoming big were like, hey, do you want to join us and come in as equity partners? And that's how I got my first 3 exits. So we sold to Cantor Fitzgerald, we sold to AAU Basketball, and we sold to Ellucian, which is one of the top ed tech for education. And so I kind of just fell into it because people liked working with me, and I did a good job. I hustled, I did good work. And I'm a positive person. I'm okay to be around, I guess, but, and that's really how my business launched. And so before I sold my agency, I had 3 exits before I was 23 years old. And so some of it was stroke of luck and getting in front of the right people and saying the right things. And, but it was really just straight hustle and relationships. To me, building a business is 110% relationships. That's what it is. And it's how I've built every one of my businesses.
So true. I wow. I hope people are taking notes because this is absolutely so valuable. So with the I don't even know where to start. Like you ran an ad on Craigslist. I remember I've been building websites for 28 years. I've been in web development and marketing, and since 94, I built my first hard-coded my first website in 94. And I can remember too and I was thrown into the deep end. It was a Mercedes-Benz dealership. I was like, I don't know what to do. Oh God, no. They said yes.
You figured it out. When your back is against the wall, I think that's the lesson here, everyone. It's like, if you want, I love takeaways, right? So in your notebook, put like little like check boxes next to everything, so it becomes a to-do list. Don't write notes, put to-dos down of what you're going to do. Like most people are scared to just get started. And the bottom line is I had no idea, but I knew more than she did. And that's the point. I might not have been an expert, but I knew more than this artist did. So just get started. If you have even a slight expertise, just start putting yourself out there, even if you charge nothing in the beginning, and just get out there and start doing it and slowly increase your price, slowly increase what you're doing. And the next thing you know, you're going to have a $200 million business, right?
It's so true. I How many times, God, I'm getting way ahead in the interview, but how often do you see that, and I talk about this a lot too, Alexa. I think that, have you ever walked through a store and on an end cap, you see like that was my idea, that product sitting there, right?
Snapchat. Snapchat was, so I had a client who came and we actually ended up suing Snapchat. That's a whole other, we won't have to go into that. But we actually created Snapchat before Snapchat came out. It was called Glimpse It. And the problem was, it was like about 2 years before the app development store was open. So we developed Glimpse It on the web and it was working really well. But here's a really important tip. We were not ahead of the trend. And Snapchat came out with the app before we did, kind of ripped off our idea. There's no proof that they even knew we existed. However, there was a lot of similarities to it. And we did end up, so we ended up settling, but we didn't stay ahead of the trend. And that's like, if you're going to launch something, you have to stay ahead of the curve. And the problem is sometimes we don't try to be innovative after we launch something. And remember, the work starts when you launch. That's not when it ends. And so that honestly I was like 22 years old, probably the biggest mistake I ever made. Maybe the second biggest mistake. The first mistake was selling our patent to Cantor Fitzgerald for way less. It's worth billions now. So we screwed that up. But besides the point, I mean, I was 20 years old, a couple $1 million sounded nice. But now I'm like, it's worth billions. I'm like, okay, I really suck.
What was
But
the
again,
patent on?
so when you go into casinos and you see the iPads and they have raffling, that patent was mine.
They have what? They have
They have raffling on the iPads when you go to casinos.
yeah.
So that there's a patent there because there's a whole logic behind because even down to the zip code, the laws are different for raffling, online raffling. So that patent is ours. And it's like worth billions now. But anyway, it is what it is. That's a second lesson is learn how to negotiate and never exit fully. Always keep a small percentage. We should have negotiated keeping 2 to 5% for life. Idiots. But anyway, you learn these things, right? You learn, right? So, I think that the most important thing to me is understanding that you got to start somewhere and you've got to learn. And for me, we coach hundreds of students. I mean, our coaching program, we have an 80% retention rate, which is unheard of in the industry.
Wow.
Industry standards like 30%. Honestly, most of the 20%, we just don't invite them back. And what I find with students, like I have one student who came, she had the skills, she had, $125,000 business, but she was getting in her own way. And she didn't have the skills to build a 6-figure business. Is very different than a 7-figure business. And she had the skills to roll up her sleeves and build a 6-figure business, but she didn't have the business skills. She was a technician. She was not a leader. She was not a business owner. She was not a 7-8-figure business owner. She was a technician. She was good at doing her job. But once you hit 6 figures, you have to learn how to run a business.
Yep.
And so now within 12 months, she's about to probably next week hit 7 figures.
That's
and
so awesome.
So she went from 125 to hitting $1 million, and we're in June. Imagine where she's going to be in December. She could hit 1.52 million. And this isn't a difference of 12 months. And it was just learning the skills. So you just got to get started and run through 0 to 6 figures is honestly the hardest part. It's the hardest part.
It
really is.
It really is. I I remember. I mean, it is, and I don't want to talk about me anymore. There's just so many things you're saying that are bringing up. Like, I don't understand people who don't take action. And I know they're smart enough. I know they have the funds to back it. I know, and which I never had. Somebody loaned me $20 when I started my business. But I know that they have all of the abilities. What do you think it keeps people? And I mean, it's fear, I think is the most popular answer, but I think it's more than that. What do you think is holding people back from taking that action and opening a business, starting a business?
So I feel like there's a 2-part answer here, right? I think there's what stops people from starting a business and then what prevents them from actually succeeding. I mean, the stats are staggering. 2% succeed after 10 years. I mean, it's not a high percentage, and I could tell you exactly why. But why people start, I think people get comfortable with having a paycheck, right? But at the end of the day, unless you're an entrepreneur, now this is another thing. I think actually being an entrepreneur is underrated. And to be honest with you, if I hate reporting to people. I'm going to be honest with you. So I'm never a good employee because I just want to make decisions. I hate red tape. Like I make 1,000 decisions a day like this, and I can't sit and have to ask somebody else. Like I can't do it. I tried it like for a little bit. I worked for Catterton Partners as a fractional CMO. We flipped an asset from 50 to 120 million in 12 months. And it was great. I owned 1% of it, blah, blah, blah. It was great, but it was like the worst 12 months of my life for many reasons. And then I went back to being an entrepreneur. I'm like, this was a great experience. I learned a lot. Never want to do it again. So if you're okay not being at the top, and there's a lot of pros not being at the top. 1, there's a lot of pressure. 2, you have to make a lot of decisions. And 3, like you're taking all the risk being an entrepreneur. So like, for example, I brought on 3 partners. I'm the CEO, but they have equity in my company. So they're just as motivated as I am to build this thing, but they don't have the pressure that I have because they all have paychecks, but yet they have equity. So there's upside there, and they have accountability to be innovative, and they have the opportunity to almost be an entrepreneur within another organization. So I think, sometimes though people are they get stuck in these 9 to 5 jobs, and they'll make 80,000, 100,000, maybe 150 if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And they just are in the rut. And the reality is it's not hard to make $80,000 on your own if you know what you're doing and you have the roadmap to do it. It's actually quite easy. But we get scared. We like the consistency of a paycheck, and it's hard to hold yourself accountable when you're so used to a boss saying, do this, do that. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's a large reason. I think people are scared because
Yeah.
they like the comfort of it, but they don't understand that there's 2 other options. One, be an entrepreneur and learn the skills and make a hell lot more money.
Yeah.
Or 2, be an entrepreneur and be a part of building something and get equity in it. That's honestly how I made most of my money is joining my clients' projects and gaining equity in it. That's,
Wow. That's awesome. I look at people, like I'm friends with Grant Cardone. I look at his team, and they're it's it's he's built a cult almost. Like his team is huge too. And I think, how does he do that? Because I don't have, and I wonder about you. Um, I hate excuses, and like
so many of them too.
oh my gosh. And so like when something, I have that mentality of, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'll do it myself. I got it. And now I've got somebody on the clock or what, that's sitting there, like, and I know I made them feel like crap about themselves too, but like do you experience that yourself?
All the time. I mean, I experienced 2 things. So one, I I'm pretty chill. Like, I'm a pretty chill boss unless like something keeps happening over and over again.
Right.
And when people are really slow and I've told them, hey, this has to happen in 12 hours or 24
Right.
hours, and then it doesn't happen, or things fall through the cracks, like those are the things that drive me crazy. Mistakes happen. I don't get mad at mistakes. I get upset when things are not done correctly. And it's over and over and over again, repeat mistakes, or just things fall through the cracks. Those are my 2 pet peeves. And I've heard crazy things. Oh, my dog ate my paper, kind of thing,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, he did not. Your dog does not like paper.
Right.
So yeah, excuses drive me crazy. But I also think as employees, they're so zoomed in and they want money now, where a perfect example is my business partner, Susie. She said it perfectly the other day. Um, we have a lot of employees who are diehard, like super, super diehard. They all think I'm like the new woman, Tony Robbins, which I don't think I am, but they're like, yes, you're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to beat Tony. I'm like, nobody's beating Tony, but okay. Like, I love
Right.
I'm like, all right, keep going. Keep thinking that. That's cool.
Right.
And I'm flattered, right? It's great that they think that. But then I have some employees who are just like, when am I getting a raise? When am I getting a raise? When am I getting a raise? And guess what? The employees that are behind me and don't ask for anything get it. Right. And so my business partner, Susie, we were on the phone with somebody, and she said, I didn't care what the hell Alexa paid me the first 12 months I worked for her, because I knew I wanted to be business partners with her and I needed to prove myself to her. And now I own 25% of her company. That should show you something. And like, when you went from, basically, she started as a client and then
Yeah.
worked her way to build my trust. She worked for me, like, not free, but pretty inexpensive. And she's a high level, like she's charging $1,000 an hour, basically worked for me for like really inexpensive for
Yeah.
12 months. And in February, I gave her 25% of my empire. And I
Wow.
said, I want you to come on as a business partner. So, I mean, now she's getting a bonus for over 10 grand, just as a bonus, just for June. Like, right. So that's just her bonus. That's not her salary. That's not
Yeah.
her fees. That's literally just her June bonus. Right.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and, um, and so people sometimes are so zoomed in when they're working for somebody else that they don't see the opportunities and they don't see what it could be. If you zoom out a little bit, like, work on the relationship, put relationships before money. That's in anything you do,
Do you
because money will come.
I totally agree with you. Do you think that there is a sense of entitlement with a lot of people? Like they,
Yes.
should we go there?
Especially Gen Z. I have, I don't care now because he's not with us anymore, but I have an employer right now. It's like so entitled, like within 3 months wanted a raise. And then I'm like, all right, give me an example of something that you've done that generated money. Like, yeah, you're good at what you do, but you're not seeing the bigger picture here. Like, you're not seeing, like, you're 22 years old. First off, like, you have no experience. You knew nothing before you came in. And then it's like, within 3 months, I want a raise. I want this, I want that. And it's just like, it's crazy. Gen Z is driving me crazy right now because they all want raises. They all want to start at $75,000 a year with no experience. And like, I worked my butt to get to where I am. Like,
You- I don't think people understand, even though you've been extremely successful, I'm sure there were times that you were like, holy crap, how are we going to eat this week? Like,
oh God, yeah. I mean, that's partly why I sold my business, Ken. Like, I
yeah,
had 129 employees. That was the largest that we got. And I mean, I had a massive payroll, like a multi six-figure a month payroll. I mean, even now we're hitting almost about 100,000 right now in our payroll right now. And we just started our company in November, by the way.
wow.
And I think I have that now, even still. Like, I said to the team, I'm like, hey, your bonuses is only going to be 10K this month because I want to put money in the savings. We all agree with that. Like, cause I get worried that, like, I got to have, and I hate taking like loans and, doing, extensions from the bank.
Yeah,
We don't believe in debt. Like, we don't even have a mortgage. Our cars are paid in cash. Like, we do not like debt at all. So I
yeah,
refuse to ever borrow money if I need it. And even if it's 2%, no, like, I'm going to
right.
make my own insurance company, make my own, loan, and loan
Yeah,
money back to my own company. But yeah, I mean, it's why I sold my company. I had a massive payroll and I felt like I was hustling, and I did really well as a young entrepreneur, but there were so many things I did wrong. And that's why I think, and I actually did that, by the way, somebody said, put the lesson. I did actually, in the fourth business I sold, I actually did negotiate getting equity in that company. So I did that right. And now it's worth 200 million and we own 8%, 10-year
wow.
vesting 1% each year. So at least I did that one right. So I learned my own lesson. But yeah, it's why I sold my business. It was so stressful to make
Yes.
payroll, and it was, but I did it wrong. I did it wrong. So there's a lot of lessons I learned.
I think that's what a lot of people don't understand is, there are no participation trophies. That's so
I
true.
love this, Jill, for so many reasons. So thanks for posting this because um I, as a kid, I was an athlete. There was no participation awards. Like, if I lost, I was in a bad mood for like a day because I was like, all right, how do I win next time? Right now, it's like, oh, congratulations. So we did like a little soccer thing for my 2-year-old, and they were like giving out participation awards. And I go to my wife, I'm like, we're not giving her that participation award. I'm like, I don't care
Throw it
if this
away.
is what people do. She's gonna understand if she won and if she lost, and like what she's gonna fix to win. That's it. Like, no participation award. It makes people too soft.
Oh, I totally agree. I think that, yeah. I don't, I mean, yeah, yes, I'm not going there, but I totally agree. I think that Joe and I have sidebar conversations about this stuff all the time. But I think, I want to go back to, I know you at some point you went to college, you got a PhD. I mean, where does that fit into the story? Because I haven't heard any of that.
Yeah, I actually have 5 degrees.
What?
I just don't talk about them. Yeah, I
You
have 3
you're a
master's
bit of an
degrees.
underachiever.
So I finished almost 2 years of college and high school. So when I started
Sheesh.
college at 18, I just went all year round and actually graduated in a year and a half because I did winter sessions, summer sessions, and I was working. So I ended up just paying. I actually, here's the crazy part. I had a full scholarship to play soccer, to go to UConn and Florida State. I had 75% to go to UConn, and 100% to go to Florida State. But and my lung collapsed in 11th grade. I ended up losing all my scholarships. I ended up going to Pace University on a full ride there. And after one season, I had started my business. So I was juggling school, soccer, and my business. I was like, I got to choose one. Like, I am like on overload here. And I ended up actually turning down my full scholarship to play soccer. And I had a very small academic scholarship. It was like 10 grand a year. Pace is really freaking expensive. So it barely covered anything. But, because it was mostly soccer. And I said, no, I'm just going to start my business. I'm going to pay my own way, paid my whole undergrad myself. But then because I graduated so early, I was like, all right, let me go get a degree. Because at the time, my business really started more as an app and website development. So I was like, let me get a master's in internet technology. At the time, I thought it would help. Now I'm like, it was kind of stupid, but got an internet technology degree. But then I took some of those credits and got a cybersecurity master's, because then I started getting more into cybersecurity projects. And that's when security started to become a big thing.
Yeah.
And then my business started to really blossom. I'm like, dude, I have no idea how to run a business. I need to go get an MBA and learn how to run a business. Worst decision ever, because MBA does not teach you how to run a business, but did it anyway.
Wow.
And then when I sold my business, that's when I went to go get my PhD, because I was like, I want to teach again. Stupid decision. But anyway, now at least I can call myself a doctor, even though I don't even, if you notice, I don't put doctor in front of anything.
Yeah, I've
But
noticed.
yeah, so it was an interesting roller
You,
coaster.
it's really impressive. I didn't I didn't go to college. I didn't even finish high school. So I was like, your rules suck and I hate this place. I'm out of here.
I mean,
So,
honestly, like, I gotta be honest. My wife and I are talking. So I'm actually one of the companies that I own. So I own equity in 17 different companies right now. One of them is I'm the CEO of a company called Aluna. We just got a $39 million valuation. We haven't even launched the thing yet, which is crazy. We have literally signed contracts for major school districts, and we haven't even launched. It's pretty nuts. And basically, it's the Uber of tutoring. So you can, let's say, even as a professional, you need help in Excel. You can literally click a button, find somebody immediately, and be on for 10 minutes. It's a genius idea.
that's
And we
brilliant.
actually are creating something called Alunaversity as well, which is an online school. Because here's what happens. You go to school and you're in a class of 30, 40 kids, and the teacher can only go as fast as the slowest kid. And so our kids are like, I don't care that my daughter reads any of those books that they read. I don't think any of that helped. Most of the math, besides the basic like 1+1 and algebra, didn't really help me either. So we've actually really strongly considered homeschool, because I mean, I feel like we could teach her better in a different curriculum. So
Yep.
I don't think, not graduating high school or going to college, honestly, I think you could be just as successful, if not more. Look how many successful people are out there. Now, I do
Yep.
think education is important. The foundations, learning to present, learning
Yep.
to do team building exercises. There are parts of it that's important, but that's how I feel about it.
I remember I had Brian Tracy on the show, and he's my hero. He changed my life 30 years ago, and I what the reason he changed my life is he was a high school dropout. And because I felt so insecure about it. And I'm like, oh my God, here's this really successful motivational speaker sales trainer, and he's a high school dropout too. So, but
To me, success is about hustle. Like, that's
it, it
hustle
is
and putting the right people around you. My grandmother used to say all the time, tell me who you hang out with, I'll tell you who you are. And it's also tell me who you hang out with, and other people will tell you who you are too.
Yep.
But that's the most important thing. Just put the right people around your table and hustle. Like,
Yep.
that's what it is. It's why coaching is really important. You need the right support and people behind you.
Totally agree with you. What now, do you have any currently any online courses that people could take, or and where well, I want to put your website up where people can find all the information about you too.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of websites, but yeah, so we have I don't really believe in online courses per se because the percent of people that actually finish them is very low. But we do
Very.
have an online coaching program that has one-to-one coaching, group coaching, a community, and a course. But the course is like we're like walking you through it, like hand in
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
And really, we have three levels: somebody that's super, super new, somebody that's trying to get from 6 to 7, and somebody that's trying to go 7 to 8 or
Okay.
high sixes to eight,
Yeah.
or a couple million. So we have three different programs where we help people scale. We've helped hundreds of people at this point. We have so many testimonials and examples of in pretty much almost every industry. So it's
What website should people go to
so that is passion2ceo.com. And I'll tell you
Passion
the
TO? Or
passion here, I'll put it in the private chat. And while I tell you the story behind why it's called passion to CEO, so my when I sold my business in 2014, I was so lost, Kevin. Like I was like, what do I do? What am I doing with my life? And I ended up going to get my PhD to teach. And while I was teaching, I really fell into the passion of teaching. But there's like no money as a professor, like
right,
okay, maybe for the average person, but you don't go from like making $1 million a year in a salary to like 80,000, 100,000, and being a professor, like you don't make a lot of money.
right.
And so I ended up actually finding my passion. And I remember after I got out of the private equity, I was like miserable. It was 2019. It was December 24th. My father, who just passed away, actually, we were sitting
Mm,
down at my sister's house, and I was like, I'm like, Dad, I suck. Like, am I just miserable at everything I do? Like, I don't understand. And he was like, Alexa, you have a passion to help people, but you also have a passion to make money. So you have to find something that does both. He goes, why don't you start a coaching program? I'm like, dude, that's genius. Now talk about speed of implementation. I'm my first student on December 28th. And then by January 10th, I had 12 students.
wow.
So talk about just, you don't need anything fancy. And now we've helped hundreds of people at this point. And the funny thing is, my dad actually ended up being so in love with what we did. He ended up joining as a business partner in it and really helped shape the whole program. And
Wow.
I mean, we have an 80% retention rate. And
That's so
again, the
awesome.
20%, most of them is people we don't invite back. We've only had a handful of people that haven't been successful. And most of the time, it's because they don't listen or they just don't participate and do the work that they have to do.
Yeah.
But 80% is insane. The industry standard's 30. So it's a really good program. And I love it. It's passion. So that's where the passion to CEO comes. You can love what you do and make money doing it too. So
That's incredible. I think, first off, I'm sorry for the loss of your father. That
thank you.
sucks.
It was
Um,
hard, but I built a team around me, right? And so
yeah.
somebody actually asked, how do you effectively juggle all the business in which you are
My wife.
involved?
That's my wife.
And
Yeah.
it's a great question, and it's also how my business didn't fall apart when my dad died, because I had a fantastic team, and I work really hard to find good people, and I would say one in every four is a keeper.
Yeah.
But I've had people that are still with me 15 years later, and I do whatever it takes to keep those people because they're loyal, and they're good employees. But the team, I went MIA for like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I was done. He was like my best friend besides my wife, and my business partner. I mean, we spoke 5, 6 times a day, and it was really, really hard. And everybody supported, and that's the power of this community, this passion to CEO community. Like honestly, all my students were. I mean, they all came to the funeral. They were all supportive. They all understood why I couldn't coach them for a couple of weeks, and everybody was just like, it was just incredible. And it just shows the power of being in a very supportive community. It's so important.
It is there. I mean, I honestly, back in 2014, when I met Grant for the first time, I'd never even heard of him. But he coached me for 3 hours one-on-one in his office. And he's like, you need to cut out all the bad, negative people now. And I
Yep.
was like, I mean, I think I have a pretty good team. I was in denial. And he's like, no, you don't. And I'm like, but I think I do. And he's like, no, you don't. And like, so I started picking people. I really followed a process. And I can say today that there is not what you just said. There is nothing in life more important than the people who are on your team surrounding you in your life, like in your inner circle. Doesn't even have to be part of your work team, just in your life. That's so important. So important.
It's literally, I think, one of the most important things, no matter what you do, entrepreneur, 9 to 5. And it's the difference of success and not, I think, because you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with, and that includes your family, by the
Yep.
way. And
Amen.
so one of the things that we always do with our students is every couple months we make everybody write all the people they are around a lot and add a plus or a minus and how they feel. How does this person make you feel? If you put a
Oh,
negative, then that says something to you. And it's how you will see a difference. I only surround myself with positive people. When I have
yeah.
people that are negative and dramatic, I fire them. Like I can't deal with it. It's one of my biggest pet peeves because I'm a super positive person. So when somebody is like nasty or negative, boom, like out. I don't even deal with it. I don't even give you a chance to explain. If you create drama, see ya.
I love it. So are you what you're saying then is I need to get Joe out of my life.
Yeah, that guy Joe, I don't know why you hang out with that guy.
Oh, Alexa, you're amazing. I could literally sit here. I know you're incredibly busy. I've got other things here in a bit too, but I'm just gonna. I like to be very transparent. So there was a time when my wife and I met 13 years ago. We decided it would be a great idea to open an office and bring employees on. So we did. And about 6 months into it, one of the guys working for me comes in my office and he says, "Hey, there's a guy looking in the windows of your SUV out in the parking lot." And I'm like,
Hmm.
"Dude, you're bigger than me. Tell him get the hell out of here." And he's like, "Well, he has it blocked with a tow truck." And I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh no." And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I had a car repossessed in front of all of my employees. And it was the
Mm.
most humiliating day of my life. And for a moment I thought, what's the point of all this bull crap? What everybody else is getting paid except for me. And I my question is for the person who feels like they've tried everything they're barely hanging on. Maybe they're not making money. Their electric's getting shut off. They're whatever. Like, what do you say to that entrepreneur, that person, to help them get through to the next moment? Because we know it'll get better if you just keep pushing eventually. But what do you say to them to help them get through that moment?
So a few things because that's a loaded question. But first is I think the number one reason that separates successful people from not successful people
Yeah.
is persistence.
Mm,
Straight persistence and not giving up. And that's why community is important. And there's free communities. You don't have to pay for communities. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I live my life on 10% of what I make. And you look at my life and I have more money in the bank than I actually show, right? And that comes from seeing like my wife's family who was very wealthy, lost everything. So my advice to you is when you do start making money, understand that you don't want to live above your means. All the people showing like Lamborghinis and this and that, like those people are renting those cars most of the time.
yep.
And two, like that's not how you want to live your life. So my wife and I finally just bought our dream home like now, and we've been in business 17 years.
Yeah.
We've always lived way under our means. So I think it's two persistence, but one persistence, but two, be smart with your money. Don't overspend. Sometimes people make money and spend, and you can't do that. Like you live life, but at the same time, you've got to be frugal in life. And especially now with what's happening in the economy and who knows what's going to happen, like you got to be a little selfish. Sometimes I'm too nice, and sometimes I'm constantly giving to other people, over tipping and this, and giving bonuses and that, and sometimes you got to be careful. That it's gonna get gnarly out there in the next year or two, and you've got to make sure to like a squirrel, take all of the nuts and save them because you never know what's going to happen. So always prepare for what's going to happen, even if it doesn't happen, then you have it, right?
Yeah.
So That's the most important thing. And never stop prospecting either. Like, one of the things that I've noticed is people get comfortable when things are working, and then what happens is they're not proactive to when shit's going to hit the fan, because it's going to hit the fan.
Yep.
And so I see this in my students all the time, where this is why they fail, is because they're not preparing for the future. They're in the now, and like, oh, I have plenty of money coming in now. Well, what happens if you lose two of them? Right.
Yep.
And we actually did a webinar where I talk about how I lost $50,000 and gained $1 million. Right. And it's looking at the lessons that you can learn. So just be
Wow.
persistent, save your money. It's not what you make, it's what you keep. That's going to help you in the future to never be in this position again. If you want to be financially secure, you have to learn how to manage your money. It's the number one skill set as a freaking human being that you
Yep.
need, because you're in this position for a reason. So you have to look deep down and look in the mirror and say, why am I in this position? And how can I make sure it never happens again?
Love that. Any books you recommend? I see right behind your head the
I
best
have
book.
I have quite a bit. I mean, I am obsessed, obviously, clearly, with funnels. Like,
Yeah.
I'm obsessed. So any of the Russell Brunson books are really, really good.
Yeah.
If you're really new, Start With Why is a really good book as well. But I mean, I have a ton of recommendations as
Yeah.
well. So
Alexa, you're amazing. Thank you. I know you've got other things to run off to. If you could hang on though, for me, I'm going to end the live stream here in a second. Is there anything else you would like to share with the audience that's pressing right now?
no, but if you guys want to hear more, I do have a podcast. It's called Think Tank Millionaire Podcast. You can get it on Amazon, Spotify. Would love if you can go listen to me and my business partners. We talk about business and real solutions to problems that we're dealing with every day. So it's a great podcast. Episodes are 10 to 15 minutes, and we're going over real problems that we're having in our business and the solutions and talking through them. So it's Think Tank Millionaire Podcast. So go and
Wow.
listen and like it and share it.
Bob asks real quick, how is your onboarding of key employees different than onboarding into your inner circle? That's a great question, actually.
Yeah, it is. So I I have somebody on my team. We call her the SOP queen, because everything has to have a standard operating procedure, including onboarding. We actually onboard very, very similar, because our onboarding for our coaching program is really, really intense. Like, we have a whole onboarding process. I actually have a whole course for onboarding. We also have a course for onboarding for employees as well. We actually use ClickFunnels. And what we do is we talk a lot about our values and our vision and our mission, because one of the number one things, guys, is you have to know where you're heading. If you're heading to the beach, people need to know you're heading to the beach. It doesn't matter if it's the left side of the beach, the right side, but your employees have to know where you're heading. But so do your clients, because if they don't know where you're heading, how do you expect them to buy in? Because buy-in is the number one skill set of a leader. You have to get buy-in from people. And so, so we talk a lot in our onboarding about our vision, our mission, how we treat clients, how we respond to clients, tone, positivity. We spend a lot of time, and we do that also in our clients as well. And we make people sign off accountability. Here's what you're going to get. Here's what we're responsible for. Here's what you're responsible for. And we make people sign on the dotted line. And it
That's
literally
awesome.
says, I, boom, 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 meaning I'm going to do all this. And they sign for it. So I think that's the number one thing you can do in anything you do, whatever service-based business you're in, for employees and for clients. Make sure you set the expectation up front.
Wow. Alexa D'Agostino. Did I do
There
it?
you go. You got it.
Comma Ph.D. You are a rock star. Holy crap.
Thank you. This was so fun.
Everybody watching has been blown away by you, by the way. So
Aw.
you're amazing. And I encourage everyone to go follow Alexa everywhere on social media. I'm sure you're not difficult to find, especially with that last name. So, go follow Alexa, go to the podcast. My wife put it up a minute ago. There it is. Think Tank Millionaire Podcast. Go subscribe and give her a 5-star rating. And Alexa, you rock. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was so fun.
I appreciate you being here. If you'll hang on for me, I'm going to end the live stream now. But I want to say thank you to everybody who watched. If you shared this out, there's extra bonus points for you somewhere. So thank you, and we'll see you guys later. Thanks so much, Alexa.
Thank you.